Move over, Mad Titan Thanos, and make way for the ultimate Titan, our beloved Godzilla. The true protector of nature's balance, Godzilla strengthened his position as the king of the monsters yet again, when he bested the alien Daikaiju Ghidorah, following which the likes of Scylla, Behemoth, Methuselah, Rodan, and the Queen Muto bowed to him, accepting him as the alpha of the Titans. Even though Godzilla is the king among Titans, he is not the only alpha monster out there. Throughout his Monsterverse tenure, Godzilla faces challenges every now and then from kaiju such as his frenemy King Kong, the three-headed dragon monster Ghidorah, and the parasitic Mutos. In this video, we will explore these Monsterverse alpha titans and more who come with mind-bending origin stories and incredible powers. Basically titans who do justice to their alpha title. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Scar King. What better way to start the list than with the new baddie on the block, the Scar King, the devilish antagonist introduced in Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire trailer, ruthlessly stomping around both on Earth and below it. The Kong-like Titan is totally worth of being an alpha given the fact that Kong cannot fight him alone and needs to team up with Godzilla for his new adversary. Scar King, seen briefly in the trailer, appears to be a super species Titan resembling a gigantic orangutan, with elongated arms and legs and covered in red fur. Well, calling Scar King gigantic was quite an understatement actually, as simply the mark of his palm almost entirely covered the length of a towering mountain. Humans looked like mere ants in his shadow when Scar King emerged on the beach, thus suggesting he is significantly larger in size than both Kong and Godzilla. Despite his size, Scar King has a less bulky build than Kong's, giving him the advantage of better bipedal ability and speed, which paired with his merciless nature enables him to dominate an army somewhere in the depths of Hollow Earth. Being a king, he sits on a throne placed over a never-ending pile of Titan carcasses and skulls, which could hint at his past rampages and conquests. His kingdom comprises of an army of frightened apes and a rocky carcass-laden terrain with lava oozing out from the deepest and darkest depths of Hollow Earth. Scar King's electric blue eyes glow ominously as he lets out a soft growl, asserting his dominance as the new king. As if that was not menacing enough, the Scar King was assigned a terrifying accessory as well. He wears the spine of an animal, probably one of his past victims, across his right shoulder like a sash. Scar King's decision to display his conquests also show that his new villain comes with greater intelligence than our returning Titans, something which may have contributed to his status as a leader in the first place. In order to match up to the new ape-like villain, both Kong and Godzilla have been given new upgrades. Kong now wears a transformer-like gauntlet in one arm, while Godzilla's dorsal spikes emit a neon pink glow instead of his signature blue. Another speculated addition that might make it to Scar King's army is the gigantic reptilian Titan Shimu, which, if turns out to be true, could enable Scar King to wage wars underwater as well. Given that Scar King is Monsterverse's original creation and not a borrowed monster from Toho, he can be made as terrifying as is required to intimidate not only the King of Skull Island, but also the King of the Monsters. We'll let Scar King's scary roar do the rest of the talking. Ghidorah. Overview and storyline. Oh, look who we have here. Ghidorah, who gave Godzilla a run for his money. No kidding. As an alien monster, Ghidorah has no respect for Earth's natural ecosystem, wants to convert it into Titanville, intends to destroy humanity, and establish himself as the predominant ruler of all monsters. In Monsterverse, the first reference to Ghidorah was at the end of the 2017 movie Kong: Skull Island, when a monstrous three-headed dragon was seen in two snippets of a cave painting, in one of which he was engaged in a battle with Godzilla, establishing Ghidorah's long-standing rivalry with him. In 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, Ghidorah remained frozen at Monarch's Outpost number 32 till he was awakened by eco-tourist Alan Jonah and Monarch agent Emma Russell. Emerging from his frozen entrapment after millions of years, the spiteful and menacing Ghidorah towered at 521 feet with a wingspan of 1,300 feet. Confronted by Godzilla, Ghidorah overpowered him and fled to Antarctica, but not without taking a pit stop at Mexico's Isla de Mara. where Rodan was ready to challenge the resurrected monster. The Pterosaur Daikaiju didn't stand a chance against Ghidorah and later returned as Ghidorah's sidekick. In his second confrontation with Godzilla, Ghidorah gets his left head severed and flees to Rodan's volcano, resulting in one of the most iconic scenes in the Monsterverse. The scene where Ghidorah makes the Alpha call commanding all Titans across the world to assemble and lead cataclysmic destructions on Earth. With Godzilla lying at the bottom of the ocean almost killed by the oxygen destroyer, Ghidorah established himself as the Alpha of all Titans, spreading his wings in a sign of an animalistic intimidation while the lightning struck down on him in the background of a cross. Ghidorah was truly a sinister sight. While monsters come crawling out from their deep slumber in response to Ghidorah's call, Ghidorah is tricked into arriving in Boston, where he battled a re-energized Godzilla and one-upped him again, almost mercilessly killing Mothra with his gravity beams. Godzilla was only able to destroy Ghidorah after having absorbed the radioactive energy from Mothra's incineration and turning into a fury form. If you thought that was the end of this sinister monster, wait till you know what his lifeless severed head was capable of doing. In a follow-up of the post-credit scene of King of the Monsters, which revealed Alan Jonah acquired the decaying head of Ghidorah that Godzilla ripped off in Mexico, 2021 movie Godzilla vs. Kong put it in possession of the ambitious Apex Cybernetics, which its CEO Simmons and chief scientist Serizawa harnessing its telepathic powers to control the robotic Mechagodzilla. When Apex charged up the robotic giant with raw energy from the Earth's core, Ghidorah's remaining consciousness in the skull took over Mechagodzilla, prompting it to resist the pilot's control and act out with genocidal intentions. It was only after Kong and Godzilla destroyed the mecha that Ghidorah's influence could be put to an end. Origin. In Monsterverse, Ghidorah was discovered by Monarch, frozen in an Antarctic glacier, following which sometime in 2016, Monarch scientist Dr. Vivian Graham built a containment zone around the frozen Ghidorah. In her super classified notes, she wrote, "The devil has 3 heads, and Ghidorah was eventually believed to be another devilish monster that Earth has seen. Like the other Titans, when Ghidorah showed no signs of damage from the oxygen destroyer and also regenerated his severed head within minutes, Monarch's mythologist Dr. Chen was reminded of legends about a great dragon who fell from the stars, a hydra whose storm swallowed both men and gods alike. Thus, Monsterverse assigned Ghidorah its original backstory as an extraterrestrial monster with no respect for Earth's natural order. Previously referred to as Monster Zero in the film, the 3-headed alien kaiju was finally identified as Ghidorah, the one who is many. King of the Monsters director Michael Dougherty solved the mystery behind Ghidorah's entrapment in Antarctica's Scott Mountains. He said, just like the cave paintings showed at the end of Skull Island, Ghidorah battled for the top spot among Titans in ancient Antarctica. While Godzilla won, Ghidorah was entrapped in icy waters. In the novelization, Ghidorah's frozen body was positioned at a distance of just a few miles from the entry point of Hollow Earth, suggesting the alien monster intended to invade Hollow Earth but was stopped in its tracks by Godzilla in the aforementioned battle. Abilities. Because of his extraterrestrial origins, Ghidorah possessed a gamut of unusual powers in his arsenal, which made him all the more formidable. For example, he appeared to survive without oxygen, because of which he was completely immune to the oxygen destroyer. He could shoot gravity beams from all 3 of his heads, which were powerful enough to burn Mothra within seconds, instantly turning humans into ashes, destroying buildings, and wounds Godzilla's scales. When Godzilla targeted his atomic blast at Ghidorah, he immediately overpowered Godzilla with 3 streams of gravity beams. Meanwhile, Ghidorah could withstand a full-powered radiation blast from Godzilla, which only pushed him back by a distance. The presence of electroreceptor molecules in Ghidorah and traces of gold on his skin enabled him to conduct electricity and run currents through his body. He could also fire lightning from the bladed tips of his gigantic wings, as seen in one of the most visually striking scenes in the film, and his wings had the power of creating hurricane-level storms. Owing to his powerful wind flaps, a flight speed of 575 miles per hour, and his ability to harness electricity, Ghidorah could generate localized tempests and thus was always shrouded in unearthly lightning-filled storms when flying. When Ghidorah assumed the role of the Alpha for a brief while, his primary cyclone branched out into many cataclysmic offshoots and dispersed across the Earth's atmosphere. Ghidorah could drain energy from the source by biting into it, such as when he chomped on a transformer plant to power up or sunk his teeth into Godzilla to siphon off the excess radiation after Mothra's death. Ghidorah also used telepathy to communicate between his 3 heads, each of which had different personalities, with the middle one being the most intelligent and sadistic, and also the one calling the shots. The right head was the most aggressive one, exhibiting more spatial awareness during combat, fiercely battling scrambling to free itself from Mothra's webbing while the two other heads were stuck. The left head was easily distracted and was often berated by the middle head for that. It was also the more curious one, which was seen when Ghidorah was awakened from its frozen state. On a lighter note, Michael Dougherty hinted that the left head wouldn't be villainous at all without the influence of the other two heads. Ghidorah could also regenerate at an incredible pace, regrowing his severed left head in seconds after absorbing radiation from Rodin's volcano. The holes on his wings also healed after he jumped down on the power grid and re-energized himself. Ghidorah was way stronger and well-equipped than Godzilla with his three heads, monstrous wings, and alien powers, carrying Gojira away above the stratosphere only to drop him to his disastrous fate. Let's not forget, if not for Mothra's sacrifice, Ghidorah would have been the end of Godzilla. Kong. Overview and storyline. This brings us to our next alpha, the Titan who bows to no one, Kong. Though King Kong has been there since 1933, the Monsterverse version of Kong was introduced for the first time in 2017 movie Kong Skull Island as the last remaining member of a primate superspecies still in his adolescence and growing. More mountain than mammal, he walks upright on two legs, his towering form shaking the ground with each thunderous step. Read Monarch's description on the simian giant. Monarch and the Monsterverse audience encountered Kong for the first time when Skull Island antagonist Preston Packard began dropping seismic bombs on Kong's island to map it. Emerging as the protector of his island, Kong attacked the helicopters in the sky, causing massive damage to Packard's crew and irking his wrath. Later, Kong was tricked into a napalm-laced lake by Packard, and the burning trap singed the giant's fur and knocked him out. As Packard prepared to destroy Kong with explosives, the monster Skull Devil engaged the reawakened Kong in a fight, eventually defeating him. As the Skull Island shifted its attention to the humans, Kong attacked it with a boulder and then proceeded to slice its throat with a ship propeller. In the final face-off, the Skull Devil coiled its tongue around Kong's arm in a deadly grip. When Kong overpowered the Alpha Skullcrawler by ripping out its tongue, finally killing the monster, and thus proclaiming himself as the true king and protector of Skull Island. The Monsterverse Kong continued to feature in the animated series Skull Island, the comic series Skull Island: The Birth of Kong, which was both a prequel and sequel to the 2017 movie, and in Kingdom Kong, the graphic novel sequel to the 2021 movie Godzilla vs. Kong, before finally facing off against Godzilla in the 2021 film. In Godzilla vs. Kong, set in 2024, 3 years after the events of Kingdom Kong, the king of Skull Island found himself living under an artificially created biodome watched over by Monarch. Realizing the artificial environment is weakening Kong, scientist Eileen Andrews decided to relocate Kong to his ancestral home, Hollow Earth. But on their way to the Antarctica portal to Hollow Earth, Kong was attacked by Godzilla emerging from the water, resulting in an epic battle of the Titans, which completely exhausted Kong. After he was airlifted to Antarctica, Kong made an adventurous journey into Hollow Earth, where he discovered the fortress of his ancestors and an axe created with an ancient Godzilla's dorsal plate. The radiation from Kong's new weapon caught Godzilla's attention, who burnt a hole all the way into Hollow Earth, challenging Kong to another battle in Hong Kong, where the two Titans eventually battled off the Mecha Godzilla. The robot Titan could only be defeated after Godzilla powered up Kong's axe with his atomic breath, with Kong ripping off its head and spine. As Godzilla returned to the ocean, Kong claimed Hollow Earth as his new kingdom. Origin. This brings us to the Monsterverse Kong's tragic origin story. Kong's prehistoric ancestors evolved in Hollow Earth, an ecosystem also inhabited by other gigantic creatures under the surface of the Earth. The ape-like superspecies was worshipped by ancient humans who eventually evolved to be the Iwi tribe. Kong's ancestors battled Godzilla's species in Hollow Earth, with the simian titans creating weapons out of the fallen members of Godzilla's kind. Unable to win the battle for dominance, Kong's kind began to dwindle and they migrated to Skull Island when it came into being, through an opening in Hollow Earth. There, the Kongs were challenged by the bloodthirsty Skullcrawlers, who haunted them down to the point of extinction, with only Kong's parents remaining alive. When Kong's mother went into labor, they were attacked by a horde of Skullcrawlers. The dad Kong fought off the Skullcrawlers long enough for Kong to be born, who was sealed off in a cave by his mother. An infant Kong witnessed the Alpha Skullcrawler murdering his parents, who died with their hands held together. Kong knelt in front of his dead parents, vowing to protect the island and the Iwis from the predatory monsters, thus becoming the king of Skull Island. Abilities. When we met the Monsterverse Kong for the first time in Skull Island, he is an adolescent who survived repeated attacks from the Skull Devil and the secondary antagonist Preston Packard. Kong tossed around the helicopters deployed by Packard, crushed them with his fists, and even leapt into one, causing it to crash. He even was immune to conventional weaponry such as machine gun rounds and recuperated quickly after being singed and choked by the lake fire orchestrated by Packard. But in Skull Island, Kong's real show strength and abilities were at display during his encounters with the bloodthirsty skull crawlers. Kong fashioned weapons out of a T-trunk and ship wreckage to battle his opponent, slicing the skull crawler's throat with a propeller and then ripping out its tongue with his bare hands. By killing the alpha skull crawler, Kong avenged the death of his parents, solidifying his position as a true alpha titan. Kong also reminded everyone of his alpha status in King of the Monsters when he ignored the three-headed monster Ghidorah's call to destroy Earth's ecosystem, which awakened the dormant titans all over the world, thus proving Kong isn't submissive in any situation. In Godzilla vs. Kong, the latter was full-grown and fearlessly faced the King of the Monsters, leading to two solid battles. Kong's powerful punches were potent enough to knock down Godzilla and topple him off the ship carrier. When the battle scene shifted to Hong Kong, Godzilla roared in pain when Kong punched his injured leg. In order to evade Godzilla's atomic blasts, Kong used the high-rises to its advantage, eventually ambushing his opponent from the top of a building. After being resurrected by a missile blast on his chest, Kong showed the Mechagodzilla who's boss by chopping off its body and ripping out the head and spine. Cool things that Kong did in addition to partaking in exhausting battles were fixing his dislocated shoulder against a skyscraper and surviving the immense force of gravitational inversion while entering Hollow Earth, which is a planet's worth of gravity reversed in a split second. As a Titan, Kong is only second to Godzilla, a true alpha who bows to no one. Muto Prime. Overview and storyline. Unlike Ghidorah, there's one Titan who has confirmed kills on ancient versions of Godzilla, and she is the parasitic Muto Prime, which raises her to the status of an alpha for sure. Now, before you confuse Muto Prime with the Mutos that Godzilla battled in the 2014 movie, let us tell you that Muto Prime has never really appeared in the movies. She was introduced in the 2019 graphic novel Godzilla Aftershock, which was a prequel to King of the Monsters and the sequel to the 2014 Godzilla movie. Muto Prime's mind-boggling backstory directly linked her to the death of Dagon, an ancestor of Godzilla's species. Legend has it that Godzilla's kind was hunted down by the Muto Primes on an ancient Earth, driving them to the brink of extinction. The Muto Primes' history of rivalry with Godzilla's species is equivalent to that of the Skullcrawlers to Kong, ancient arch-enemies. In the graphic novel, a tenacious battle ensued between Muto Prime and Dagon around 1100 BC, with the former using his ovipositors to insert two Muto eggs inside the weakened Dagon. The Muto eggs extracted nutrition from Dagon's nuclear-rich biology, eventually killing him. The parasitic Muto Primes consume nuclear radiation to grow stronger and insert eggs, containing male and female Mutos, inside healthy hosts so that they can procreate once hatched, eventually killing the host. Once her eggs are inserted into the host, they release a sonic frequency conveying to the matriarch that they are safely purged, charging the Muto Prime's response from fight to fight and causing it to retreat underground. It is theorized that over years and years of survival, a female Muto eventually grows into a Muto Prime. Now, the same Muto Prime that killed Dagon was the progenitor of the male and female Mutos that Godzilla killed in San Francisco. She emerged sometime in 2014 to challenge Godzilla. The Muto matriarch was drawn to attack a naval base in Guam because of their fleet of nuclear submarines, but quickly retreated following a powerful attack from Godzilla. Muto Prime's next attack was a submarine in the Barents Sea, which too was intervened by Godzilla, resulting in the Muto's quick retreat. Muto Prime's next encounter with Godzilla was in France, where she managed to leave a bloody mess and attempted to infect Godzilla with her eggs, before disappearing yet again. Meanwhile, Monarch's Emma Russell, who had been investigating gigantic craters supposedly created by the Muto Prime all around the Earth, chanced upon Muto eggs casings inside the carcass of a Godzilla. Realizing that Muto Prime has what it takes to kill Godzilla, Emma and her team decided to help the King of the Monsters by tricking the Muto matriarch into thinking that her eggs have been implanted in Godzilla. After a failed first attempt, the Muto Prime was forced to face Godzilla, which led to a battle of the Titans. Meanwhile, Emma and her team effectively distracted the Muto by blaring sonic pulses, which gave Godzilla the chance to smash her to the ground with an atomic blast and then kill her by stomping on her head, thus avenging his ancestors' deaths. The novelization of King of the Monsters showed Emma Russell's estranged husband, Mark Russell, witnessing the corpse of the Muto Prime being dissected by Monarch scientists. Origin. Monarch's exploration of Muto Prime's origins led to the discovery that history speaks of it as the earthquake beetle or the dragon beetle, but one name etched into ancient stone tablets echoes through myth and legend, and we have come to know it as Jinshin Mushi. The Muto Prime derives her ancient name earthquake beetle because of her ability to generate earthquakes with her movements, and also because of her insect-like physicality. A super durable outer shell studded with sharp back spires, gigantic clawed forelimbs covered in scales and spikes, 4 arrow-shaped ovipositors to insert eggs into its hosts, and jaws with mandibles strong enough to chew on submarines and warheads. The ancient super species targeted Godzilla's kind as they would serve as nuclear-rich hosts for the Muto eggs. Because of the Muto Prime's constant clash with Godzilla's ancestors, they evolved to become the custom-built opponents for Godzilla's kind. Ancient Phoenician stone tablet paintings depict the Muto Prime fighting Dagon and refer to it as the unclean thing or an abomination. Monarch refers to her as Muto Prime because of the matriarch being the strongest of her species. Emma Russell believes that Muto Prime is the last survivor of a Muto plague, or simply the last of an adult female Muto, which inserted 2 eggs into Dagon in 1100 BC. Dagon's skeleton was discovered in an underground cave in 1999 in the Philippines, when mining disturbances led the male Muto to hatch and escape, while the dormant spore was taken to a nuclear waste repository in Nevada, where it hatched into the female Muto in 2014. Abilities. The Muto Prime's powers include her ability to let out the sonic roar, which was so impactful that it was capable of destroying Godzilla's dorsal plates and creating seismic instability. Just like Godzilla's dorsal spikes glow before he lets out an atomic blast, the Muto Prime's eyes glow bright red before it releases its sonic roar. During the Muto's third face-off against Godzilla, she generated a shockwave strong enough to create a fault line on the Earth's surface, simply with a punch and even imbalanced Godzilla. This ability of the bioterrestrial Muto Prime was explained by Emma Russell. Because of its powerful legs, Muto Primes could induce earthquakes by punching the ground and destabilizing nearby fault lines. In ancient times, Muto Prime generated these earthquakes to draw out Godzilla's kind to hunt and kill. The Muto Prime was capable of burrowing tunnels through Earth's crust while its underground movements mimic natural seismic activity. The parasitic Muto Prime's process of reproduction is brutal and fascinating at the same time. It impregnates a victim by stabbing it with its ovipositors and inserting the parasitic pores, which eventually hatch into a male and female Muto who can then reproduce and create more offsprings. During the spore's incubation period, the host is drained of nutrition as the Muto spores feed on its nuclear-rich blood faster than it can be replenished, eventually killing the host. Muto Prime's blood is a lava-like substance, as a result of which her spiked and scaled forelimbs remain superheated, causing more destructive punches. Though initially the Muto Prime fought Godzilla in brief encounters, as it consumed more and more radiation, it was able to resist Godzilla's atomic breath for longer. Had the Muto Prime not been distracted by the sonic roar from Emma Russell's Orca device, then she would have pierced Godzilla with her ovipositors. And here's a scary fact. The Muto Prime was capable of creating an earthquake of cataclysmic magnitude, more powerful than the highest in recorded history. Camazotz. Overview and storyline. Next on our list is the Titanus Camazotz, who is in legends and myths is known as the Death Bat. Camazotz is a gigantic bat-like creature bearing a devilish appearance with fanged teeth, red eyes, spiked tail, and a pair of horns, one of which is broken. According to its cryptid profile, the Camazotz flies on torn leather wings, jutting with razor blades of jagged bone, controlling a massive hell swarm of infernal creatures like a plague of ravenous locusts, hungry to devour the sun and enshroud the earth in impermanent midnight. Okay, Camazotz, we're scared already. The super species of Titan was introduced in the Monsterverse comic Kingdom Kong in 2021 as Kong's new adversary. The storyline served as a sequel to Kong Skull Island and a prequel to Godzilla vs. Kong. According to the comics, Camazotz woke up in its deep slumber during Ghidorah's Alpha Call in 2019 and started wreaking havoc in San Diego with its army of minions. When the Orca signals brought all awakened Titans to Boston, Camazotz was not among them. Hence, he didn't witness Godzilla becoming the ruling alpha and retreated to its Hollow Earth territory. Sometime in 2021, seismic activity in Skull Island and the gradual shifting of a storm raging over the Pacific Ocean towards Skull Island indicated the arrival of Camazotz on the island. Meanwhile, Monarch, who had detected a Hollow Earth vortex in a cavern beneath Skull Island, blasted it open for investigation, showing Camazotz the way onto Kong's island. When the island was engulfed in darkness and shrouded in a perpetual storm, Camazotz emerged from the Hollow Earth passage into Skull Island, attacking Kong, which led to a colossal comic book battle. Camazotz delivered several weakening blows to Kong and then carried him into the air several times, repeatedly dropping him. Camazotz, which had an unquenchable thirst for atomic-rich blood, proceeded to sink its teeth into Kong when Monarch's fighter jets flew past his face, disorienting him and bringing him to a fall. Camazotz is then almost beaten to a pulp by Kong, who dragged him by the horn, launched a jaw-breaking punch, and banished him into the hole he came out from. According to Godzilla vs. Kong's novelization, Camazotz permanently corrupted the Skull Island's atmosphere, destroying its natural ecosystem, thus forcing Kong to move to Hollow Earth. Origin. Camazotz originated in the deepest corner of Hollow Earth, and having dwelled in the dark caverns for millennia, it was rendered blind. In ancient times, the Camazotz was worshipped by a tribe in Mexico and also featured in Mayan legends representing night, death, and sacrifice. According to Mayan literature, the Camazotz plagued humanity since the beginning of Earth and lived in caverns, which were portals to the underworld. The Mayans documented warnings about the Camazotz, and so did the Iwis. They prophesied the return of the death bat, and that with its emergence, the island would be shrouded in storm and darkness, a prophecy which turned out to be true. Abilities. The Camazotz's strongest power is his ability to release a supersonic scream, which is capable of shattering buildings and disorienting opponent titans. Camazotz used his screech to weaken Kong during their battle, prompting the titan to shield his ears. When physically fighting Kong, Camazotz brutally uses his teeth, claws, and wings. Because of his ability to fly, he also gains aerial superiority over Kong. The Camazotz also commands a huge army of bat-like creatures which engage with Monarch's fighter jets, leaving Kong to face Camazotz alone. Owing to his blindness, the Camazotz is also equipped with echolocation, which enables him to easily detect threats in opponent titans. Interestingly, the storm that merged with Skull Island's storm barrier was the one left by Ghidorah over the Pacific Ocean and was drawn towards Kong's island by the Camazotz's apparent power of meteorokinesis. Fun fact, the designers also thought of giving the Camazotz Vanta black wings and the power of releasing a numbing agent, but the ideas were later scrapped. As per the author of Kingdom Kong, in order to kill the Camazotz, Kong would have incurred severe injuries, thus including the Camazotz in the League of Alpha Titans. And let's not forget, Kong survived the Camazotz's blood-sucking attack because of the timely intervention of Monarch's fighter jets. Tiamat. Overview and storyline. Our next titan here is the aggressive, territorial serpentine Tiamat, who was first mentioned on a Monarch map in The King of the Monsters, following which the creature made her debut in the 2021 graphic novel Godzilla Dominion, a prequel to Godzilla vs. Kong. She appeared as a new adversary of the King of the Monsters. Tiamat is a gigantic sea serpent with a blue body covered with vibrant purple scales, giving it a bioluminescent glow. Intimidating yellow eyes and barbels flowing out of her head gave her a dragon-like appearance. In ancient times, Tiamat fought and killed several titans, including one of Kong's ancestors, whose skull lies in Godzilla's cave. Tiamat, who dwells underwater, is also amphibious in nature, emerging on land every now and then to feed on electricity, but its dominant territory is water. Tiamat was discovered by Monarch in Georgia's Stone Mountain, following which Monarch built outpost number 53 around her. Responding to Ghidorah's call in 2019, Tiamat freed herself and began attacking humanity, till she was pacified by the Orca, activated by Madison Russell in Boston. In Godzilla Dominion, following his exhausting battle with Ghidorah, the King of the Monsters made his way to one of his old lairs in Hollow Earth when he sensed something sinister approaching. Tiamat, who is extremely territorial and had claimed a lair, attacked Godzilla, dragging him into a whirlpool. She wrapped her body around Godzilla with her scales piercing into the Alpha Titan. Godzilla headbutting Tiamat only resulted in the latter spewing out a venomous vapor into the water, which disoriented and blinded Godzilla. Tiamat coiled her body around Godzilla yet again, sucking him into the dark depths of the ocean till they reached an underwater tunnel that led into an air pocket, with Tiamat sinking her teeth into Godzilla's throat. The scene described in the comics induces a sense of horror. Once again, her body cuts into him like 100 teeth. Here below, she is at her strongest. Once the fight was brought back to the lair, Godzilla gained the upper hand and pummeled a stubborn Tiamat, who roared defiantly. When Godzilla roared back, Tiamat appeared visibly frightened and accepted submission by slithering back into the water, letting Godzilla reclaim his old lair. Origin. Monarch's cryptid profile of Tiamat describes her as a bioluminescent serpent of the ocean that emerges on land to to feed on electricity. Titaness Tiamat is the embodiment of primordial chaos. The serpentine creature's name, Tiamat, refers to a dragon-like water goddess in Mesopotamian legends who created gods who then killed her and created Earth with her carcass. Tiamat is also a dragon goddess from Dungeons & Dragons, though Monsterverse significantly deviated from the D&D design and created Tiamat with more Eastern dragon influences. Abilities. Tiamat comes equipped with a bunch of unique abilities such as her bioelectrical nature. She often emerges on land to absorb electricity, storing it in her electrogenic cells, which she later releases as currents strong enough to convert the ocean into a boiling pit. She is capable of generating electrically charged massive supercyclones that can be seen from space. Tiamat has the ability to manipulate water, resulting in violent whirlpools that can drag in even the strongest of opponents like Godzilla. Owing to her serpentine body, Tiamat uses strangling as an attacking tactic, with her serrated scales acting as piercers. Tiamat's deadliest weapon is her toxic breath, which is her ability to release an acidic, phosphorus ink from her mouth generated by the chemoreceptors located in her venom hood. The toxic breath blinds her opponents, as was seen during her underwater fight with Godzilla. According to monarch scientists, Tiamat can replicate the vocal sounds of other species. Tiamat indeed proved to be a powerful adversary of Godzilla, gaining advantage over him initially like an alpha titan, but eventually accepting defeat. Mothra. One more Monsterverse titan who deserves mention here is Queen of the Monsters, Mothra, who first appeared in the 2019 Godzilla movie, hatching from her cocoon after being watched over by Monarch for years. Even though Mothra never had the intention of fighting for dominance over other titans, she sure was one of alpha status. This was hinted at in the King of the Monsters when Mothra refused to join Ghidorah's murderous crew of titans. Even when Godzilla was laying at the bottom of the ocean, incapacitated by the oxygen destroyer, Mothra remained loyal to him and flew to Boston to resist Ghidorah, who had established himself as the new alpha. After a brief battle with Rodan, Mothra sacrificed herself to Ghidorah, transferring her life essence to Godzilla, empowering him to become the explosive version of himself who could then destroy Ghidorah with his supercharged thermonuclear pulses. Marvelous verdict. In the Monsterverse, the Alpha of the Titans crown belongs to the most dominant, all-powerful kaiju who commands the respect of every other monsters that's part of the kaiju ecosystem. It's true that the Queen of the Monsters answered to no one, much like Kong, but there can only be one Alpha of the Monsterverse, and that is Godzilla. As Dr. Serizawa said, we must keep our faith in Gojira. Tell us about your favorite Alpha Titan from the Monsterverse in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a shout out and watch this space for more marvelous content.